All right, guys. This week, Herod Antipas, not a very good guy. Mark chapter 6,
Morning.
verses 14 through 28. We'll look at it in Matthew as well. Mark 6, 14 through 28. Herod Antipas the king soon heard about Jesus because everyone was talking about him. Some were saying, "This must be John the Baptist raised from the dead. That is why he can do such miracles." Others said, "He's the prophet Elijah." Still others said, "He's a prophet like the other great prophets." When Herod heard about Jesus, he said, "John, the man I beheaded, has come back from the dead." For Herod had sent soldiers to arrest and imprison John as a favor to Herodias. She had been his brother Philip's wife, but Herod had married her. John had been telling Herod, "It is against God's law for you to marry your brother's wife." So Herodias bore a grudge against John and wanted to kill him. But without Herod's approval, she was powerless. For Herod respected John, and knowing that he was a good and holy man, he protected him. Herod was greatly disturbed whenever he talked with John, but even so, he liked to listen to him. Herodias' chance finally came on Herod's birthday. He gave a party for his high government officials, army officers, and the leading citizens of Galilee. Then his daughter, also named Herodias, came in and performed a dance that greatly pleased Herod and his guests. "Ask me for anything you like," the king said to the girl, "and I will give it to you." He even vowed, "I will give you whatever you ask, up to half my kingdom." She went out and asked her mother, "What should I ask for?" Her mother told her, "Ask for the head of John the Baptist." So the girl hurried back to the king and told him, "I want the head of John the Baptist right now on a tray." Then the king deeply regretted what he had said because of the vows he had made in front of his guests. He couldn't refuse her. So he immediately sent an executioner to the prison to cut off John's head and bring it to him. The soldier beheaded John in the prison, brought his head on a tray, and gave it to the girl, who took it to her mother. When John's disciples heard what had happened, they came to get his body and buried it in the tomb. There's a lot going on here as far as Herod's the main focus of our discussion today, but just to him wanting to be a people pleaser. He didn't want to kill John. He didn't like what he was telling him about. And you married your brother's wife, that's wrong. What are you doing? He didn't like it, but the one that he married, Herodias, I'm sure it drove her crazy. She wanted to kill John, but couldn't, and found her chance. And Herod didn't do that. He said he made a vow in front of his guests. He couldn't refuse her. Yeah, he could have. He was the king. He didn't have to do anything. But him being his pride or his wanting to please everybody or not wanting to upset anybody, he ended up going through with it, knowing John was a good man. How many different phrases can you think of that people use to make a promise? Kids sometimes pinky swear or cross my heart and hope to die. Adults may proclaim, "No matter what happens," or "My word is my bond," or "I assure you," or even a simple, "I give you my word." And let's not forget, if I'm lying, I'm dying. Jesus advised that we should be satisfied with a yes or no. Look at Matthew 5, 33 through 37 real quick.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Right on time. So, Matthew 5, 33 through 37 is where we're at right now. A lot of eggs, huh? It says teaching about vows. You have also heard that our ancestors were told, you must not break your vows. You must carry out the vows you make to the Lord. But I say, do not make any vows. Do not say, by heaven, because heaven is God's throne. And do not say by the earth, because the earth is his footstool. And do not say by Jerusalem, for Jerusalem is the city of the great king. Do not even say by my head, for you can't turn one hair white or black. Just say a simple, yes, I will, or no, I won't. Anything beyond this is from the evil one. I read that about 13 times because I think about all the times oh yeah, I promise, or you make these vows to people that, and clearly, I don't know if anybody else's version say anything different about on verse 37. In the NLT.
Is it simply yes or no?
Mine says yes, be a yes, and no, be a no.
I looked at a couple of different versions too while I was looking at it. Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely think about all the times. Oh yeah, I promise, or yeah, you have my word. My word is my bond. I like if I'm lying, I'm dying. I've heard other people say. I've never used it, but I've heard people say it. So you just think about the vows, and you look at Herod and what he said. I'll give you up to half of my kingdom. It was his stepdaughter, and I mean, it doesn't really say, but it was a group of drunken men. It was all his generals, it was all his army leaders, it was all his officials. And she came in there and danced. I mean, presuming it was promiscuous. I mean, she didn't just come in there and two-step. I mean, for them to be pleased and, oh yeah, I'm going to give you up to half of my kingdom. Says, yet most of us feel a need to add just a little more emphasis to make a promise stick or believe. All too often, promise making flies too readily off the tongue. We feel we have to prove ourselves, or we want to stay out of some trouble, or we badly want something, or we allow ourselves to be backed into a corner. There are too many instances where rash promises are made that lead to unpleasant or even ungodly consequences. That is where the bad guy in today's study lived. He made a rash promise. Then, because he was too concerned about saving face with others, he sold himself and took the life of an innocent man. What warnings can you gain from his mistakes?
Did mention kind of that he said that since he didn't want to break his promise in front of the people that were watching, it seemed like he was torn to an extent of what the people were going to think about him. And I think that's one thing that I take away from this. Even if you put your foot in your mouth and you don't want to hurt your pride or make yourself look foolish, you got to keep in mind what kind of consequences come with all that and do what's right even in the midst of looking silly.
It's not truth or consequences, it's truth and consequences.
True.
We're prideful people. I think that's one of Satan's main attacks on us is our pride. Or, oh man, look what I did. Or man, this guy's the king and has the power. That's what bothered me about it. And what JJ just said about reading the story. Not only was he pleased with his stepdaughter, but he did. I mean, he could have went back on his word. He could have been like, no, I'm not feeling John. John didn't do anything wrong. You hate John because he tells you the truth. Nobody likes the truth when it's bad. And he had pointed that out to Herodias, and she couldn't stand it.
One thing is, I feel that he made a rash promise, where you see where it says yes, let yes be yes and no be no. He didn't do that. His word was his word. You got to look at it like that also, because of the fact that it was on him. He made it. It was a foolish promise that he made. And you look at the Old Testament where it says, thou shalt not use God's name in vain. Well, Jesus tuned it up and said, you can't nothing. Because to me, is anytime you do make a promise, it's not I'm making a promise to something. That promise is also involved with God. He knows my promises. And so to me, it goes beyond just making a promise to something. And I think that's what we need to hold on to. That anytime you do say yes, be a yes. Because we've all done it. I'll be there, not there. Or I've got you there. But I think here, because the first time I read it, to me, it was like, yeah, he could have changed his mind, but he's the king, and he wanted to make sure that, his word was his word. But the circumstances of his promise, had John killed.
We'll look at the same account. It's in Matthew 14, 1 through 12. And this is from Matthew's perspective. You got to think about too. I mean, they were partying. I mean, they were drinking. I don't know if I'm the only one in here that's ever drank, but I've said and done some things that I might later regret, or make promises when you're all drunk or whatever it is. I mean, these guys were having a good time, and then her daughter comes in and dances, and oh yeah, I'll give you whatever, up to half of my kingdom. I mean, think about some of the dumb vows I made, intoxicated and partying. Oh yeah, we'll build your house tomorrow. Usually doesn't happen, but I mean, you think about putting your foot in your mouth. I mean, it says, we're going to look at Matthew 14, 1 through 12. It says, when Herod Antipas, the ruler of Galilee, heard about Jesus, he said to his advisors, this must be John the Baptist raised from the dead. That is why he can do such miracles. For Herod had arrested and imprisoned John as a favor to his wife Herodias, the former wife of Herod's brother Philip. John had been telling Herod it is against God's law for you to marry her. Herod wanted to kill John, but he was afraid of a riot because all the people believed John was a prophet. But at a birthday party for Herod, Herodias' daughter performed a dance that greatly pleased him. So he promised with a vow to give her anything she wanted. At her mother's urging, the girl said, I want the head of John the Baptist on a tray. Then the king regretted what he had said, but because of the vow he had made in front of his guests, he issued the necessary order. So John was beheaded in the prison, and his head was brought on a tray and given to the girl, who took it to her mother. Later, John's disciples came for his body and buried it. Then they went and told Jesus what had happened. I wonder what the daughter thought, man, you want me to go? She knew. I mean, she wasn't whatever. She was being submissive to her mother, what we just talked about, but just, and at what extent? So, review the account of Herod Antipas and Herodias. Why did these two want John the Baptist dead?
Because his brother's wife, John was kept on telling that was wrong. He shouldn't have done that. So she wanted him out of the way.
You wanted to keep doing what they were doing, even though it was wrong.
If any of you try to tell somebody what they're doing when they're whether in their sin or whether they're trying to I guess pull somebody out of the fire. I don't know. Has anybody ever tried that? How'd that turn out?
They're pleasing I think they're pleasing their Yeah, thank you, the flesh. And it's extremely hard to convince them to drop all that junk and get back in God's grace. Because what they're doing at that particular time feels real good to them. They're just been blinded by Satan. But I think as God's people, we have that obligation, or I don't know if obligations, but we have that whatever to love our brothers and sisters enough to be able to tell them when they're wrong in a loving way, of course. That hey, you shouldn't be going down that route, or you shouldn't be doing this or that or whatever. You know, I think if we don't, then I wonder what does that say about us. And I've heard so many people throw this in my face before. Said, hey, I was lost and nobody came and got me. You know, I've been gone from church and nobody even noticed. I'm thinking to myself, I feel bad because, man, there's so many people. I was actually know that you. So I kind of, when I get in that congregation, I kind of scan the whole building, you know. But they use all these kind of little things to, you know, like, man, nobody feels sorry for me or whatever. It's just a way about believing Satan. But the confrontation, when done the right way, I believe that it's hard, but I believe God guides you and directs you, the Holy Spirit. And all you're trying to say is that I love you. And then you hear those people that say, man, I'm so glad you were there, Cyrus. I'm so glad you encouraged me. And you man, I don't know what in the world I was doing or thinking. You know what I mean? The appreciation or whatever, if you will. But there's a bunch of them that say, hey, leave me alone, dude. Get away from me. But I think it's still our call to go out and reach our brothers and sisters. That not just the ones that are lost, but also the ones that are here, just as an encouragement. So they may be here, but they may be lost too, you know, and they're like, man, you know, that part.
No, you're good. No, that's good. I really like what you said. I mean, there's it's not always going to be accepted right away. It may not. I mean, nobody likes to hear it. Nobody likes to hear the truth when it's bad, especially when it's about you. You know, whatever. Hey, Cyrus, you're messing up. How do you respond to that? You made a good point, Santi, about there's a right way to go about it.
Yeah, I mean, you can push people even deeper than what they're at in the way that you talk to them. It's always a good idea to pray before you and let God talk to you instead of you. Because I go and talk to people that are messing up or whatever, or people come talk to me or whatever. You know, my words aren't all that at all. But when I pray about it and let God work through me, I think it's beautiful the way He works. It's not me. It's the Holy Spirit that's guiding my words. But again, I can go and talk to somebody who's lost, and the way I present myself, I can push him even deeper in the hole, or I can at least make him or her think. You talked about earlier on the let your yes be yes and your no be no. I don't want to take up too much of your time.
No, you're good.
But in the Blessing Center, people come in and they're supposed to show their driver's license and Social Security. Linda and Esther do a real good job, which when it comes to me, I'm just a mess. And people say, what do you need? Do you need my driver's license? I said, hey, your word is your word. If you don't have your word, it's, but your word is your word. You know, if you tell me this is your driver's license number, this is your driver's license number, and it should mean something. If your word doesn't mean anything, with people go, oh, that guy, he's a joke. Or they lose trust in you and different things like that. But I think it makes them feel good sometimes. And then I'll tell them, okay, let me see your driver's license. No, I don't. But I think it's important to.
I think to see somebody living in sin and just to not, if you really love that person and you really care about that person's soul and their where they're going to spend eternity, it's not easy. It's not easy to tell somebody, hey, you're messing up. You know, I mean, I've taken it the wrong way plenty of times. Not maybe the wrong way, but got upset or offended. But afterwards realize, man, you know, thankful for that person that they care enough to, whether it's to reach out, whether it's a phone call, whether it's to, hey, you know, you took a left when you should have took a right kind of deal. But I think that's what we're supposed to. I mean, that's the only thing I know. That's what we're called to do. I mean, it's not easy. I mean, and especially if you do it the wrong way, because you can be extremely critical when you're telling somebody, or you can like, oh, I'm better than you. You know, that's the perception that they'll get from that, or the holier than thou. You know, and it's like, man, I'm not better than anybody, but I want you to know, man, what I see. And you know, I have a coworker, and he struggles with PTSD really bad. He was in the Marines. And, he's told me some crazy stories. I mean, about just things they were doing or had to do or whatever. But you know, I let him know, like, hey, man, he'll go drink every day. He'll go to the bar straight after work. Like, hey, man, come to Bible study, or you know, I'll study with you or whatever. And sometimes he'll get mad, and then there's, you know, recently he came to me, called me outside, and he was in tears. He's like, man, you're always pushing me to do better. He's like, nobody cares about me. Nobody believes in me, but you do. He's like, I don't know what you see in me, but well, you're a person. I mean, you're loved. I spend more time with some of my coworkers than I do with my family. You know, I mean, I just told him, I said, you know the word, you just don't. You choose not to. You want to live in sin because that's easier. That's your escape, or that's what. And I think us as Christians, it's not always easy, but to not to enable it, but to kind of say something, to step up and say something. It can be hard.
It's funny though, on some people, I go and talk to them and talk to them and talk to them, you know, because I really want them to try to change or whatever. And I can spend years trying to help them out and talking to them or whatever. And then JJ here can get up one day and say, hey, you know, I've noticed that guy's kind of messing up. I'm going to go see if I can talk. And he'll go and talk to him, and all of a sudden the guy changes. And I'm like, wait a minute, I've been talking to this guy for years, you know. And it's funny, and I see it a lot in family members. You know, whether I'm talking to my son or daughter or whatever, and right over their head. If somebody else can come in and say the same thing, maybe in different words or whatever. Oh, okay, I understand. I think the beauty of it doesn't matter if I do it or whoever. The beauty of it is that the person understood and they want to get back right with God. But I think sometimes we get discouraged because I said, man, I've been telling you this forever, you know. And here JJ goes and just in one little talk. You want to get baptized or get back right with God? Or...
I think that's important, man. That, you know, not only having the right attitude about it, but to be open to, hey, I think it's in Luke, but there's the apostles, the disciples are trying to cast out demons and they can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
There's 9 of them that can't do it, and then one comes up and he's, hey, get out of here, demon, and he does it. Well, the other ones are mad. They're not happy about the fact that, man, he did it. You know, they're mad. Why couldn't we do it? So I think that we need to keep that in perspective as well as, hey, say JJ, the example you use, JJ goes and man, that person listened to you, but it's quick. Our pride is real quick to be like, man, why? What did he do differently? I've been telling this guy for years. He spent 5 minutes at wherever, sitting at Sonic with this guy over a burger, and now he's getting baptized. Like, I think it's real easy for us to get discouraged by that. So I mean, to be able to encourage each other and continue leaning on each other.
But if they hear it from me, it may not work.
Yeah.
They hear it from JJ, it may not work. They hear it from, anybody, eventually somebody's gonna click. And it says, oh, okay, and I don't know what they said or how they did it or what. It doesn't really matter. The fact that they're coming back to the Lord is the blessed thing or the beautiful thing. It's just all of us working together on let's just say one person.
Is it like, I get it like somebody starts digging the hole, planting the word, and here comes somebody else and puts the seed in there and it starts growing. That's how I get it.
Yeah.
Somebody starts and here comes somebody else, and then somebody else comes and cultivates it,
Good
and it
point.
grows.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I had a hard time with that. I would have always wanted to change somebody, and that's not my job. My job is to, like you said, to dig the hole, to plant the seed, to water the seed, but only God can make it grow. But it's also a team effort. It's more than one. It's hey, maybe that person or that. Maybe you scratched the surface, or maybe you said dug the hole, or maybe John planted the seed, and maybe JJ came along and watered it. But God has to make it grow, and that's one thing that I've had to realize. Even trying to disciple people or to be discipled myself. I mean, I can't. I always wondered, oh man, I can help that person. What I can do is show them the word and study with them and spend time and love on them. But I mean, that's outside of that, it's God that makes the seed grow. It's good. So leading up to Antipas's outrageous oath, do you think he was duped? Think he got tricked?
I definitely think the devil had because Scripture says, let your yeses be yes and your noes be no. So just the fact that he got so engulfed in that situation that he felt he had the promise, I think the devil was definitely attacking him at that time. That devil was scandalous.
Yeah, but we have the choices, man. I don't think he was tricked. Because being a king, I mean, he made all kinds of decisions. He was running the show there. I just don't feel that he had the God in his heart.
He gave in.
Because he wouldn't make that type of decision if you had God in your heart.
Gave in too easily.
Yeah.
When he knew in his heart he could have done better.
Because he regretted it, but you make the decision. But what you guys were talking about earlier, I think a lot of times is I ran into a lot of kids that would have bad times, working at Sam's, the age limit in there, the gaps in there, and I used to hear a bunch of kids, and I think the biggest thing was they would see me, how I carried myself, and then when I did want to talk to them about something, majority of the time was I listened to their problems or listened to what they were going through, and some kids make decisions based on emotion instantly, they break up with their girlfriend and that they think the world has ended right there, and just listening to them, and then they would come back to me and say, you know what, I appreciate that you listen to me, then I would start talking a little bit more, talking to them, because at that time they didn't have time to listen to what I had to say, because they were already in, and that's what with this guy, he was already indulged in what was going on, and hey, you know what, I'll give you this, I give you that. But I just really feel that a big part of our role is to listen to what's going on in their lives. And then how much time you put into that person, like you were talking about, feeding a little bit, watering a little bit, come back and make sure, like what Santi talks about a lot is when somebody gets baptized, the water stops right there. We're not watering it. And to me, and the majority of the time people get baptized is because something's going on in their lives, that they're seeking God.
she waited. She planned this. This wasn't like, oh, I finally have an opportunity. She knew.
Yeah, what?
The wife, Herodias. Herodias knew. I mean, she had been wanting to kill John for a long time. It wasn't something that just happened overnight. This hatred had festered for a long time because he called them out. He called them out on what they were doing. Hey, this isn't right. You married your brother's wife. This is not right. John didn't hold back. I guess you can say it got him killed. I mean, got him beheaded, but he didn't. Could have easily, gave in to you think about the pressures of, just being accepted, or hey, I can get out of prison if I quit telling these people that they're living wrong. But he didn't, he stood up for what he believed in.
But did the king send him away though to, was it named Pilate or Pilate?
To try to protect him from her.
Yeah, so he knew, so he, like I said, he made the call, on this, so, he was trying to get, like you said, trying to get him away from his wife, give him to the other king.
It's interesting between Matthew and Mark. In Matthew, it clearly states Herod wanted to kill John, but he was afraid of a riot because all the people believed John was a prophet. When you look at in Mark, it says he enjoyed listening to him.
Yeah.
He didn't like him. Sit there. I was also doing the Cyrus version of this. Said in verse 19, Mark 6:19, it said, so Herodias bore a grudge against John and wanted to kill him. But without Herod's approval, she was powerless. For Herod respected John, and knowing that he was a good and holy man, he protected him. Herod was greatly disturbed whenever he talked with John, but even so, he liked to listen to him.
That's what we were just talking about. Some people just don't like to hear it, but they'll sit there and listen to it because it makes sense, If somebody's telling me, you're drinking too much, and I'm just like being stubborn, but I walk away and say, man, Cyrus was right, and I am drinking a little too much,
Mad about it still.
But still mad,
Mad
because
about it, but yeah,
who you to call me out? Instantly you put your guard up, man, and because you like what you're doing.
Sometimes I read these stories and I tell myself, what's God trying to say in all this? And one thing that really comes away from me after reading this is that the responsibilities of a believer or a Christian nowadays is that you got to remember that verse in Thessalonians, he said, the day of the Lord will come like a thief in the night. I'm sure John didn't know that his next day was going to be his head cut off. But as Christians, we've got to know, like you said, that people might be in the background plotting on you or having, whenever that time comes, whenever we're called to make sacrifices or take some sort of a harsh punishment because of our beliefs, man, we've got to be ready because we don't know when it's going to be. And that's one thing I admire about it. Almost sounds like John was in a good place whenever he was strong with his faith whenever he did lose his life.
What I get out of it is just, your word should be good. Being a Christian, you don't have to try to show off or try to show people you have this or be above somebody or be he takes a lot of that off you if you do have God in your heart, because you're just being a godly man and giving advice or giving an opinion and not thinking evil thoughts, just thinking you love that person, and that's why you're saying what you're saying. And that's what I'm getting out of this, that, you know, I need to walk in the light and be honest. You know, sometimes it's hard to be honest to somebody, but because it hurts, you know, but you walk away, you feel better because you were honest about it.
This is a little different thing, but it's I have the Hugo McCord New Testament, and it says like John the Immerser. And when you say John the Baptist, the people are just going to think, well, it's a Baptist. Well, immerse. You go into the water and you're buried in the water. Now, some people were going to get sprinkled when they were a kid. They don't know anything. And now when they grow up, they still don't know anything because you don't get baptized, you get immersed. And if people are going to make tit for tat and stuff like that, you just do what this says and there's no question. But it's a little point that everyone's going to hem and haw about.
No, that's
Yes, exactly.
Sorry, you didn't go all the way under. You just got your head wet. That doesn't do it. Bye-bye. That's the way it's going to be.
The people pleasing part is something that stood out to me. I can think about in the past. I was always worried about what are they going to think, you know, whether it's my family or my friends,
It's true.
church family,
Try to fit in.
girlfriend, whatever, whoever it was. Don't tell my wife I had girlfriends before her. But what are they going to think?
You got hush
What-
money?
What's that?
You got hush money?
That's money.
I'm broke. But you think about he was put in a bad spot because he made this crazy promise that I'll give you half of my kingdom. Well, he didn't expect for her to go run to mom, you know. And other versions, her name's Salome, or whatever version. It's Herodias in my Bible. She's also named Herodias, the daughter. But he was so worried about what are my guests going to think. I went back on my word, you know. I told her in front of everybody, I'm sure he made this grand drunken announcement. I'll give you up to half of my kingdom. You know, this guy he's the center of attention. He's got all the power. He's the king. And I know how he felt whenever she came back and she said, I want John's head on a tray, you know. Oh, anything but that, you know. But I've already said it. It's too late. Now I have to honor this promise. So then the king regretted what he had said. But because of the vow he had made in front of his guests, he issued the necessary orders. Anybody think of a time in their lives that you can relate to that? People pleasing. You don't want to upset somebody. Maybe fitting in, especially with the wrong crowd.
I do that a lot, because I don't want, I think I come home and I nag to Josie a lot. I said, man, I should have said this, you know, and I should have said that, but I don't want to hurt their feelings, and I don't want to, but, you know, and I don't know that I don't know, maybe a people pleaser or whatever, but, I mean, some people will say some of the weirdest, ugliest things, and I think to myself, what I should say, and then I don't say it, and then I go home and I tell Josie, man, I should have said this. I should have said this, or I should have said that. Kind of like a little bit too late or whatever. But it's not wanting to hurt their feelings. Because sometimes you don't know where people are at. You know, you don't know what kind of day they've had, and what kind of week they've had, or they've lost a loved one, or they've lost their job or whatever, and you know they bark at me and I bark right back, and they're gonna say, oh man, this world is not worth living. I don't know, you know, So sometimes I just let them blow it, steam out or whatever. And then when I get home, the poor Miss Josie, she hears my little stories. And I should have said this, and I should have said that. I need to ask God for more courage, and I need to do this, I need to do that.
I think a lot of times it's our fear of, man, are they going to take it the wrong way? Are they going to, you look at Jesus and the circle kept getting smaller and smaller. You had thousands of people following him. He said, hey, you're here for a meal. Go home. You know, if that's what you're here for. If you're here for the next miracle, that's why we talked about it yesterday morning. He told some people, hey, go and tell everybody. He told other people, hey, don't tell anybody. Because he didn't want people following him for the wrong reasons. For, hey, because you want to see the next miracle. Yeah, I would want to see a miracle too. That would be pretty interesting. But it's hard. It's a fine line, and we all have to, you know, find the balance in that. But you don't want to go home with those regrets. You know, you also don't want to push somebody over the edge or push them away from God. But if it's the truth, it's the truth. And if you're not sharing that with people, like you do go on. Man, I've done it all the time. I do it all the time too. Sometimes I'm sure Heather tired of hearing it too. Like, man, I had an opportunity at work today, and I didn't trust God that, hey, what he was going to do with it, whatever it is, whether it was good or bad, whether I had an opportunity to tell somebody about Jesus or whatever it was, and I try to have less and less of those regrets.
You don't tell them the right thing, they're going to hell. And if you tell them they're going to hell, they're going to get pretty upset at you. So, Lord, I tried. And they just didn't. If they go to hell, they can't say they weren't warned. But still, it has to be at the right time.
Yeah.
I had some people come to my mom's house, a while back, and they were members of the church. And one of their first remarks was saying, hey, if you don't change to the Church of Christ, you're going to go to hell. And of course, she said, you know that door that you came in through? I said, yeah, but you see your way out. I mean, they extinguished all the possibilities that had been there. Of course, my mom was a strong Catholic, you know, but you know, sometimes just by, even in our Bible classes back there in the back, I've heard some of the guys teaching, and it says, yeah, you got to go to the Church of Christ. I said, hey, stop, you know. Our job is to water, to cultivate, to dig, to plant, or whatever. You let God do his business. And that's not our business, you know. And we can't tell them, if you're going to come here, you're going to get our food, you're going to get our clothes, you got to go to church. You know, I heard 2 or 3 of those little stories, and I said, I better get closer because I think I'm hearing, and sometimes I hear stuff that's not really said. Some weird demon or something, I guess. But you cannot tell. I mean, you have to be very, very careful with your words.
Yeah, but sometimes, I mean, constructive criticism is constructive criticism. Some people have to hear it. You know? And to me, I feel that, you know, like, for instance, my brother Tomas, I admired him because he would tell you how it was, regardless. But then on the flip side of that, they would go to him because they knew that he was going to tell them the truth. You know, my wife, same way. I mean, she would be honest with somebody, and I'm over there like, oh, no, hey, you know. But it was honest, you know, and they respected that of honesty, you know. And to me, it's. I mean, how many promises did God give you? You know, and His word was His word. You know, I mean, I remember one of the parables where they're asking him, you know, are you the son of God? You know, and he told them yes. But all the other time he stayed silent because they never asked him that question. But when they did, he told them the truth, you know. I just, you know, to me, like a constructive criticism. I mean, because I used to get it from my bosses all the time. You know, this is what I'm seeing. I didn't want to hear it, but I implemented what they were saying. Well, it did work out for me, or you know. But our instincts are this defense, you know. And what John was saying, you know, I'm going to tell you, you know, if you don't do this, you know, this is the word. You're going to go to hell, you know. And they're going to get mad. Well, okay, you did your part, like we were talking about. You did what God asked you to do. You know?
I care about you.
I care
I
exactly.
realize where you are, and I'd like to see you in heaven. And now, if you don't take me seriously, it's goodbye to you and goodbye to your relatives. You got to say goodbye to your parents. If they don't take what I'm telling you, someone else is going to tell it to them. And it's happened before. But if you don't do it, it's goodbye, eternity. You're going to be burning. You're going to be hot. You're going to be thinking of cold water, but you're still going to be hot. And there's nothing going to happen to you. You're just going to burn, and that's eternity. So that's hard to explain. That there's no time out.
That's the right thing. What I'm getting here is you just got to be honest. You know?
It says, Jesus charged the religious leaders of his day with the following. I do not accept glory from human beings, but I know you. I know that you do not have the love of God in your hearts. I have come in my Father's name, and you do not accept me. But if someone else comes in his own name, you will accept him. How can you believe, since you accept glory from one another, but do not seek the glory that comes from God? That's from John 5:41 through 44. It says, what can you learn from their example that can help you avoid making rash promises?
Listen.
Yeah, it goes back to, seeking approval, or wanting to be accepted, and not worried about putting what God wants in God's will, God's plan for our lives. Thank you, God.
Thank you.